Hello, welcome back to RH Movie Recap. Today I'm going to show you a 2015 drama romance film called Natasha, so let's get started. As the film begins, we see a young boy named Mark. Mark and his friends were having a good time here. After the party, Mark went to a room to have a physical with a girl, but she refuses to be physical with Mark, so Mark quietly leaves. Mark returns home and falls asleep while watching videos of Mia Khalifa on his laptop. The next day, Mark's mother picks it up and tells him that his uncle is coming to meet him today, so get up early and prepare. Next, we see Mark's uncle, who comes to Mark's house with his wife, Gina, and they are having dinner here. When Mark's eyes are drawn to Gina's bra and he begins looking at Gina's house after dinner, Mark's mother informs him that Gina is leaving for Russia. Gina will go to Russia today because she has already had a marriage with whom she has a 14-year-old daughter. A few days later, we see Mark's family coming to pick up Gina at the airport, and Gina comes with her. A few days later, Mark meets Natasha for the first time. Mark's uncle marries for the second time to Gina. After their marriage, everyone comes to Mark's house and parties there. Mark was there, looking only at Natasha after the party was over, and Mark takes Natasha to his room. Natasha inquires as to what you spend the majority of your time doing. Natasha deduces from your room time on this date. I told you that I play video games and study in my room. Natasha asks, have you ever brought a girl into your room and gotten physical with her? Mark calms down after hearing Natasha and explaining that you are only 14 years old, and how can you do such a thing? All these are on this, and Natasha says that no, do not feel embarrassed by all these things because I've been physically abusive with more than 100 people, and if you feel like it, you too can be physical with me. Mark claims that your mother married my uncle, making you my cousin. When Natasha hears this, she says, I don't care anyway. My mom is a very cheapish type of woman, and I've seen them get physical with others numerous times. Mark suddenly falls silent and does not say anything until one day Mark's mother appears and informs him that Natasha has arrived in this city for the first time. Until Natasha befriends someone, you stay with her anyway because she appears to be your cousin's sister. The next day, Mark visits Natasha's house, where Natasha's mother tells Mark about Natasha. Natasha opens the door, then her mother tells her to get ready and go out with Mark. But Natasha, enraged at her mother, walks out of the room. Mark also pursues Natasha and inquires, why were you angry with me? Your mother then informs you that she despises her mother and does not like her at all. Mark speaks to her. Natasha arrives, and he gives it to one of his friends, Rufus House and Natasha, who are in love. Meeting Rufus, Natasha inquires about him. Mark informs Natasha that Rufus lives here alone because his parents have gone on a trip to another city a few days ago. Come to a restaurant for dinner. Natasha is left at Mark's house. Please do not come to my house, Mark, tomorrow, because the next day, when Mark was studying in his house, I will come to your house. Natasha arrives at his home to greet him. Both sit and talk to each other before going for a bike ride. Mark meets some of his friends on the way and gives them drugs. Natasha learns that Mark has drugs, so when she returns home, she requests drugs from Mark. Natasha is also given drugs, and the two of them sit in the room and take drugs. Natasha requests Mark's laptop, and Mark grants her permission to use it. When Natasha opens the laptop, she notices adult videos playing on it. Mark was actually watching this adult video, but he forgot to turn it off. Natasha likes to watch these videos. Natasha opens her Facebook profile on her laptop and begins to display her private photos to indicate that she has seen the photos. Natasha says, would you like to be physically active with me? As Mark's weapon stands up. Before Mark says anything, Natasha begins taking off her clothes, which causes Mark to become physical in his room with Natasha. After becoming physical, both of them begin to like each other and spend more and more time with each other. They've both been physically active on several occasions. One day, Mark's uncle and Natasha's mother go on a trip, and Mark begins to develop feelings for Natasha. Natasha is forced to stay at Mark's house as a result of this. Mark and Natasha are conversing in the room. Natasha says she enjoys being with Mark and wishes she could stay forever, and Mark agrees. Why not? After all, you are welcome to stay as long as you want. Natasha informs Mark that her mother is cheating on Mark's uncle because her mother still comes to see her. Natasha claims that she told her uncle everything about it, but they didn't believe her words at all. Mark's uncle and Natasha's mother have just returned from their trip. Natasha's mother requests that she return home. Natasha says she doesn't want to leave because she enjoys it. I am aware of everything you have done with. When Mark heard this, he said. Natasha begins to fight with her mother, but Mark's father, Natasha, was very angry with her mother. Mark's mother, and Natasha receives a lot of advice from her father as a result. Natasha must return home to her mother. Mark arrives the next day to meet Natasha. Natasha's mother tells Mark that it is not your fault, but Natasha is a spoiled girl with a dirty habit, and she has become physical with many old people as well as young people. This evening, Mark will depart from here. Natasha arrives at Mark's house with all of her belongings. Natasha informs Mark that she is returning to her hometown. Will you join her? With me hearing this, Mark, he says nothing after Natasha says her mother and uncle have divorced. Because I was getting physical with your uncle, and while getting physical, my mom saw me, and I wanted to cause a fight between my mom and your uncle so that my mom wouldn't do it. Mark says nothing. It leads Natasha into the room. Natasha will leave tomorrow. Mark is heartbroken because he has fallen in love with Natasha in the morning. Mark gives Natasha money so that Natasha will have no trouble leaving. Natasha then walks away quietly, taking her possessions to Mark's house. His uncle's divorce was discussed. Why did Gina divorce Mark's uncle? Mark knew the whole truth, but after a few days, he didn't tell anyone. Mark's friend Rufus calls it, but Mark doesn't pick up Rufus's call one day. Mark comes to Rufus' house and sees Natasha, who is now living with Rufus. Tells Mark that I called many times to tell you about Natasha, but you didn't pick up my call. Natasha appears. Natasha catches Mark's eye. Mark realizes, angrily, that the love affair is nothing more than a ruse. Mark gets on his bike and rides away in rage. Natasha just keeps looking at it after she gets home. Mark thinks of Natasha, and the movie ends here. Thank you for watching, gentlemen.